Welcome to How Women Inspire. Our guest today is Barbara Pierce. She's known to a lot of us, and she touches on a really important parts of our life. She's known for her ability to speak about money easily, frankly, without judgment. And she helps progressive women deploy their wealth to drive systemic change and innovative nonprofit ventures to connect with major donors interested in their social missions. She's the CEO of Her Own Wealth. Barbara directs her family's investments and giving and encourages other women to do the same. Barbara founded Women with Capital. Women with Capital. You got that? To educate, inspire, and support women through an exploration of the psychology of wealth, investing with impact, and philanthropy. It is a vibrant community of high net worth women with wealth, who want to use their resources to make positive social change. Anyone who's heard me talk about the reason and the need for how women lead understand that this is part of the work that we're all doing. And Barbara has figured out how to do this so beautifully to really help people get their arms around their power, their wealth, and their influence. I'm so honored to get to spend time with you today. How are you doing?
Oh, same here, Julie. I'm doing great. I'm so glad we're in this together and talking about money and having the opportunity to do so. It always really lifts me up talking with you.
Well, right back at you. All right, Barbara. So first, let's talk about something fun. What is your either your walk-on music or that song that you listen to in the good days, the tough days?
Okay, well, those are a bit different, but I know one of the things was about in terms of, something inspiring and something that really captures me at my proudest or best. And so I thought, and you can date me with this, is that song Moving On Up.
Yeah.
And so I love that because it's very relevant. One of the proudest moments in my life was graduating from Wellesley College. And so growing up, working class in Boston, this was a huge leap, not just for me, but for my family. My parents were the only ones in their families to graduate from high school. And so to go
High school.
to a school like Wellesley really made a difference in terms of not my immediate salary, but in terms of class, in terms of networks. And so that was the dream. So moving on up is something that inspires me to hear and makes,
I love that. That makes me really happy. And congratulations. Wellesley is such a special organization and really, has been responsible for launching so many of our country's biggest leaders. So many of the women that I admire the most, is where they came from. So it sounds to me like you did not necessarily grow up with extraordinary wealth. If people weren't graduating from high school, how did this journey begin for you then to really be thinking about how we all manage our and take control of our wealth?
So I did grow up working class. My father belonged to a union. He was, paid hourly, got a lot of his income from overtime. And I grew up on Cape Cod, so I was surrounded by wealth without having it. But a lot of my friends had wealth and pretty comfortable with it. But I did definitely notice a difference. And even though I'm pretty smart, it was an aha moment when I realized that this one family, I was like, wow, they're not working, but they seem to have all the money they need. And that money, wealth, does not come from working for an hourly wage. That math does not add up, but investing does. So from a young age, I was very aware of that, did not have the resources to do much investing. But even when I started working, I was getting interested in it because that's what makes a difference.
Well, and not only that, but as a young person, you're like, well, wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So that's a beautiful story. So when you created Women with Capital, how did that get started as an organization? And what was the path to launch it?
Well, my background's in philanthropy, as you know. For 25 years, worked with nonprofits and working with major donors. And so my job at Mills College, another women's college, I worked with incredible women making very large gifts, smart, savvy. But when I talked with them about investing, there was not any interest for the most part, because they're like, well, this is what I'm doing. And all the investing is done over here, which I think is very typical for so many women, and the figures bear that out. And I thought, if these women could apply the innovative approach, so savvy, that they take to philanthropy to the rest of these much larger assets, what a sea change that would be. How exciting. And my focus is on socially progressive women who, I have a sense, hide it more. So you're not bringing it to the table. And I love the idea of what it would look like if more socially progressive women with wealth used it, moved millions, billions into the things we want to see in the world.
It sounds to me like this is really a social mission. It's almost an extension of your philanthropy. Is that right?
It is. I wanted something. I've been very lucky to now be, as a friend says, work optional. So this is a real mission. And that I started also when I took over managing our family's assets. I'd gotten much more interested in it. And I was trying to learn more about it. And I was only getting pitched, because a lot of that is
Sure.
the way it's
Yeah.
set up.
Which is, it feels threatening almost. You're like, you know what? Yuck. I don't want, I don't know what to believe, because everybody wants something, right?
Right. I couldn't really discern.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't able to find someone, because I had sort of gone through, I was very fortunate. I didn't need to read about saving for a car, or what a lot of the financial literacy investing basic books mentioned. And so I wasn't sure where to find it in terms of objective information that I could act on that was relevant to me. And so it's one of those things. Finally, I created it. And that's how Women with Capital started.
Would you mind sharing with me either like how much money you've been able to drive to impact that maybe wouldn't have before, or even just like beautiful personal stories of
Sure.
anybody? Like, to me, when you really take control of your wealth, especially as women, just magic happens. Just watching people's sense of power and potential in
Yes.
the world, it's beautiful.
Right. Yeah, it's much more than the money. It's about power, about owning that, about sharing it. I mean, that's my big mission. And
Yeah.
for a lot of people who don't have it. And
Mhm.
so in terms of how much the women and Women with Capital have moved since we started, just anecdotally, it's been at least 25 million. And I think it's closer, and I'll get the data on that, but it's probably well over 50 million since 2019.
That must make you feel really wonderful. And that's a
Oh.
short amount of time. That's big. That's really fantastic. Well, I know everybody that I know that's been part of it is just extremely complimentary and feeling so great about it. Is this what your passion is? Is there another part of this that is sort of fueling your passion and commitment around this?
In terms of my passion behind it, I tell people I'm interested in money for many reasons, for choices, ones that I did not have growing up, my parents didn't have. That's very powerful. But it's about power and how women are almost sequestering it.
Yep.
We're stuffing our money into our mattresses. And like I said, in terms of what women can do and personal stories, I've seen 70-year-old women who haven't been engaged at all stand up and become angel investors in your fund. And they're so proud, and they see what they can do. So that's wonderful to see.
Well, there's this life stage, I know you've heard me say this before, about called middlescence, in your mid 40s to 70, right? And doing things with other women and having an impact is actually the recipe for happiness. So to me,
Yes.
Barbara, you're just like the happiness fairy. You must get so much joy about seeing people really achieve that part of the development of this stage of life, right?
They're a special group of women, and I talk with each one. before they enter the community, because it truly is a community. But to see them blossom, and honestly, I mean, they inspire me. I always feel uplifted and very proud to be in their company.
So women collectively have, as far as like the data says, have 50% of the wealth today. And by 2030, I've seen numbers between 62% and 70% of the wealth. All right, this is humongous. I mean, for a long time, we talked about the buying power of women because we make more of the household buying decisions, but that is a massive sea change. What do you see as the opportunity for us in this moment?
Right. Yes, as you know, I'm very focused on this. I think it's really exciting. I'm surprised how many people don't know that this is coming and it's already started. I see the opportunity, first of all, for women to change the financial industry. And that is a huge boulder to roll up that hill. Right. You've already started, and we need to have that ripple throughout the financial industry. I have heard so many people and had that experience myself of going into a financial advisor. They would only speak with my husband, even though he would clearly agree with me. I'm the one that's interested in it. I've heard a lot of people just not being centered at all, even though it's their money, because the advisor knows better. So I think the big picture, the financial industry is got a lot of work to do in terms of working with women and not just talking with them differently, but engaging with them differently, because there are lots of seminars in terms of how to talk with female clients. So I think that's a big opportunity. And the reason why I'm so focused on this work is we need to take advantage of this. The trends in terms of women abdicating control over their money to men is actually going in the wrong direction, which hurts my head. And then looking into it more deeply, because I do think about this a lot, is women now and in the upcoming generations see how money has been used by men and don't want to replicate that. And so I think there also needs to be a focus on the opportunity, the joy, the reward, the looking at money as a tool for transformation, not just in yourself, but in your community. So I'm hoping that more women will see that and engage, because we're going to have a lot of power.
I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. My friends, this is the first generation of us. We have a huge opportunity. We have power and influence and wealth. And we can start building the tables where we get the prime seats. Today, we want to invite you to join us as investors in venture. I know no one's asked you to do it before. It might be something that seems scary or foreign, but I promise you it's not that different than investing in a mutual fund where your retirement funds are. I want you to lean in and just learn a little bit more. How about making a commitment that in the next 12 months, you can give yourself 12 months to figure it out and to take a step. I want to invite you to be part of the new table of power and influence and wealth. You're invited. I want to sit at the table with you because we're going to make big change. We're going to make the world we've been dreaming of. So you've honestly, to me, you've just barely touched on it with what you just said, which is a little bit about like, hey, talk to women differently, engage them. But if you step back, 1.4% of all assets are being managed by women and people of color combined. So women have 50% of the wealth, but our money is being managed by men and largely white men. Why is that problematic?
Well, the values and sort of protocol expectations around wealth preservation, around financial returns at any cost, the erroneous assumption that if you do invest with your values, you're sacrificing. And a lot of women have bought into that because they've heard it so many times, you're sacrificing returns. So that is why it matters. There aren't as many products designed for women and their values, their interests, that there are not so many products based on women's lifespan. That's why I'm fascinated and impressed by what Ellevest, which was started by Sally Krawcheck, and her chief investment officer, who's one of my instructors, Dr. Sylvia Kwan, modeled all their financial models are based on women. That's who they serve. And that's not the case. So all of those projections they run for us all the time, it's not necessarily relevant. And it is based on wealth preservation. Whereas a number of the women I work with, they're like, I want to die with zero. So
yeah. Hey, give it away and change the world. That's what we want to do in this life stage, right?
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned Ellevest. Is there anybody else you would say keep track of her? She's really making a big difference. Any other actors in the space that you're admiring?
Melody Hobson.
Yeah.
I am such a fan of her focus on financial literacy, as being now I believe it's the co-president of the oldest African-American owned investment firm. She is such an advocate and leader. And so I'm very inspired by her.
She's amazing and brilliant and married to George Lucas. Not that that matters, but it's kind of fun to see that family and sort of all the things that she's doing. You mentioned a minute ago this word values. And I'm not sure that it's obvious to everyone how to think about aligning your values with your investing. We did a research study and looked at the investing behavior of women. And I would say we're really looking at women sort of 40 to 70 probably is, we partnered with women's associations, professional women, and it was very obvious women are values-based investors when they take control and responsibility for their investing.
Yes.
So how does that show up in your work that you do with people?
So back to why I do this, and my mission is I'm not just about trying to help people. That is not my aim, to make more money. Although I do believe that you should expect financial returns. That's what makes it sustainable. And that's why you're investing in companies that you want to see be successful, which means returns to you. But in terms of values and what that looks like, I think it's come a long way. Again, dating myself from when it was socially responsible investing, and it was like, no, I don't want tobacco companies in it. And that's still valid. But I think women are pushing for more control, like you said, when they embrace and direct their wealth, and are asking for more, being proactive. Like I said, one of my speakers, and a woman I admire very much, Rachel Robichodi, constructed very proactively engaged the community around her social justice ETF. And so that's another way of more targeted impact in the public sphere. But I think what you're doing, what the entrepreneurs you support are doing, is the type of targeted impact that women can really have. And that's, as you know, you're at the forefront of it, is going to be talk about sea change, to see those companies we want to see in the world. And that's why I'm particularly interested in supporting women who can make those type of private, very targeted impact investments.
Do you think that talking to women about their values is actually one of the better ways to get women to start thinking about taking control of their wealth?
So I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think it's essential, but it's not an end point. And I've seen other programs that stop there. So I think, like I said, that's the through line in Women with Capital. That's what I care about. I attract women who care about that too. But that you need to talk about it. And we talk about it at the beginning with the psychology of wealth, how that plays out. And then we track it against sustainable development goals throughout your philanthropy, throughout your investment, coming up with an investment thesis and acting on it. So I think talking about it is essential, having a place to do that, but then having the tools to put that in action.
Okay, women are going to start really owning their wealth, thinking about values alignment, directing it, feeling that sense of empowerment. How is this going to benefit us in the long run?
I have a quote that Gloria Steinem said, that we're never going to solve for the feminization of power until we address and solve the masculinity of wealth. So this is just right.
Oh.
It should be everywhere. I'll get you a shirt. I'll get a shirt.
Please.
So that's the bottom line in terms of how that's going to benefit us, is to stand up politically. I mean, money is power in the world that we live in politics. You know all of this, but to really be bold, unabashedly visible with your money in terms of supporting those candidates, those causes, moving money, moving private capital is really one of the more powerful things we can do.
Okay, you use a word wealth, and I think for some people, they probably have very widely different definitions of what does it mean to have wealth. For some people, it could be $1 million. For some people, the minimum needs to be much higher. So when you talk about wealth, is there a dollar amount that you have in mind, or is it anybody who has money they're investing?
So first of all, I think people do self-select in terms of defining wealth. I think of it as when I have more than enough for not only my needs, but my wants. And so that's different for everyone. For my group, I say 5 million in assets. I'm not a financial advisor. There's no skin in the game for me where that is. I don't ask the number. So people self-select in, but I do that because I want to focus together on opportunities, looking at the choices that we can have, having that amount of wealth. That is not nearly enough for some people. That is, including me, a dream. And then some people are never satisfied in terms of what wealthy looks like.
Well, boy, a lot of that stuff we grow up with is hugely, whether it's the source of all evil, or if it is growing on trees, or all the things we heard that put fear and shame and other things into our hearts and into our minds. Is part of your work dealing with any of that? Does that ever come up?
Yeah, we start with that, and it's slightly different in people who have inherited, people who have married in, people who have made their money, and a lot of times it's a combination of all of those. But it is guiding. I set up Women with Capital very well, and it still is in terms of all the education. But I realized that if I didn't address the psychology of wealth, that it would fall flat. People definitely need, and it's a long journey, to start reflecting on that, to have a space to talk about it, because it guides so much. And again, money can be such a placeholder for scarcity, who's going to take care of me, and that question of what is enough. And I'm very interested in the question of when is enough, for when you start giving it away or giving it away more. So that is really a driving question.
And worthiness, right? Like, is my worth. I've had people who've come to me asking for a raise, and it's so loaded, and you can tell it's all about, are you going to tell me I'm worthy? Reject me, right? And we get so caught up in that.
And you can't bring your whole self to the table. That's one of the most gratifying things I've seen, because when women are together, and like I said, that I have a minimum, that then they feel comfortable. It's a no pitch zone, even within members. It's no pitch zone from anyone that speaks with us. And so that they sort of relax, and everyone has the right to feel whole.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think as a culture, we think, if I had enough money, all the problems of life would be solved. Well, I'm here to tell you, yes, it's better. Life's better when you got enough money. No question. But it does not appear to solve all problems for people.
No, definitely not. And I've met women who have as their tagline, no whining on the yacht. It's hard to be human. That's at the base of it. And you can do whatever you want, wherever you want, because as you said, it doesn't solve everything. It can give you more of a buffer. I find it a blessing, but no, you're still human.
Yeah. So it sounds like an incredibly safe place. And I love that it's all progressive women, because when you have shared values like that, you can actually have different conversations. Have you had any situations where you just felt so excited and proud of the conversation because it was that sense of like, we all care about reproductive justice, let's say?
Definitely. And there's a lot in terms of racial justice, that climate, racial and gender justice and education are probably the top 3 interests. And when women started to be really honest, I mean, we explore questions about wealth inequality, not just questions, but the roots of that, and looking at that systemically and getting outside of yourself. That's extremely brave. and difficult.
It is.
And to do that in community, I think is really amazing. But this is the first time a lot of these women have been out in terms of having wealth and thinking about what to do about it. So no, their vision, their bigger vision, much larger than themselves, is really encouraging.
Well, my daughter went to Oberlin, and that's sort of a big social justice school. And she took a job at Uber not too long after she graduated. And boy, did she get backlash from a lot of her friends at Oberlin, thinking she'd sold out and you're a
Right.
company, and just kind of watching her navigating that is a different thing than we're talking about, but maybe very relatable, right? Is this sense of how do you, then everyone asked her, a couple of years later, everyone asked her for a job, Barbara. So let's and trying to really think about, that the privilege and responsibility that comes with all kinds of things. All right, we're almost out of time, but would you share with me the top 3 things you recommend that people think about as they're beginning their investing journey?
Sure. Don't do it alone. I mean, you can. I tried. It's isolating. And that I think we all do better and do more when we have a trusted group of people, like I said, who aren't trying to sell us anything and just want the best for us. So I would say do it together, seek that out. It's also very gratifying, in so many ways, to meet like-minded people, especially in your adolescence, although we do have some 30-year-olds. So, and then when you're meeting with your advisor, this is a big thing. A friend of mine, Heather Plant, who's a financial advisor, said, you are the CEO of your own wealth and your financial advisors are your CFOs. Like, you direct it, they implement. That has really been so much of a game-changing notion for so many people I've told, where you think it should be the assumption. At the end of the day, it's your money. And so you should expect from your advisor, they are serving you. And if they're not saying it in language that you could then explain to someone else, it's not good enough. That it is not their money. They need language that you connect with, or otherwise they're not doing their job well. So obviously hold them to a different standard than many of you have been holding them. All of us, it's set up that way, I believe. And then start. Just start. You don't have to know everything. Just start, and you'll make mistakes. You'll learn. You should be doing it now and learning. 2030.
Now's the time, regardless of what the time is. So just start. Do it with other people if you can. And you're the CEO. You're in charge. You get to direct. And so someone else, you also have, I think also you got to pay attention to anyone else's self-interest. What are they getting out of it in this exchange, and what are their motivations, so that if it doesn't feel right in your gut, pay attention.
And there are some great ones out there, but I think we need to hold more people accountable.
Yes. Well said. Well, the industry didn't grow up to support this group of wealthy people, and it's time. And so my hope is, we get a whole new group of people who treat this as a career, and we have more women of color who can be advisors.
Yes.
And help us all. So Barbara, thank you so much. You're such an important part of our community.
Thank you. I'm proud to be part of the community.
And also, Barbara, I think your courageousness in talking about these issues and not shrinking gives everyone else permission. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
How can people get in touch with Women with Capital if people want to be part of one of your groups?
Sure. Well, I have a website, Women with Capital, and that I also am engaged on LinkedIn under Barbara Pierce. But to your point about, I didn't name it Women with Wealth for a couple of reasons. And a lot of what we've been talking about, capital, I'm equally as interested in our social capital as financial capital, and those two together.
That intersection, really critical. Thank you for everything that you do, Barbara.
Thanks. And thank you, Julie.